there was a basketball trade.
I saw.
A big one. The biggest one ever.
I saw. Yeah.
For those of you who don't follow basketball, this was a big deal because the Mavericks traded Luka Dončić to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. Luka Dončić basically having one of the great starts of the career that the sport has ever seen. Anthony Davis, very accomplished, still very good, but he's 6 years older than Luka Dončić, and everybody loves Luka in Dallas. And now everybody in Dallas hates the Dallas Mavericks for trading Luka. Obviously, when you have a trade of this magnitude, everyone's like, whoa, well, what is this in baseball terms? We're just going to spend a couple minutes throwing out some possibilities. There's nothing like it. Not just because there's no parallel because anything happens. It's because in basketball, if you got the one good player, you can go to the finals, which literally just happened last year with this very player who we are talking about. So while you could say, oh, he's like Bobby Witt Jr., oh, he's like Gunnar Henderson, he's like these guys, guess what? Those guys cannot do it by themselves. So there's really no actual comparison for this in baseball. However, because this is beautiful podcast fodder, we are going to try. Jake, I know you're not as much of a hoops head as I am relatively, but does something come to mind? Because I'll just throw out a couple nominations, but I'll let you start.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is Mookie Betts. In terms of a player that's still young with an outrageous list of accomplishments, projected to be one of a future Hall of Famer who can change the trajectory of your franchise, getting dealt, Mookie is the obvious one. Now, what's notable about that is no one remotely close to Anthony Davis's quality went back in the deal. So it's almost like if Mookie Betts had been traded for like Matt Chapman at the time, you know.
Well, right. So
like
there's
George
a few different ways we could do it.
Springer went the other way.
Right, George, who was much better at the time. That's the challenge. Is normally right. So you could say, okay, Juan Soto, but when Juan Soto was traded for the first time, the Nationals were terrible, and they traded him for a bunch of prospects. That is the difference here. So to me, it would be like, okay, if they traded Juan Soto in 2022, but the Nationals were like in the wild card race when they did it, and they traded him to the Padres for Manny Machado for some reason, that would be closer to it. And again, you also have to factor in that like nobody saw any of this coming. That's the other problem. So then it makes me think like, okay, it's a player who is transcendent offensively, right? Juan Soto, beloved by a fan base and has been there for a long time. That's the other thing is that what Lucas already has like 7 years of like all NBA first team or whatever. Whereas like Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, yes, they're amazing and they could be that. It's 2 or 3 seasons and they haven't been anywhere close to a finals or a championship. This was another comp I came up with. Vlad Jr., if the Blue Jays were in the World Series last year and they traded him in November for Corey Seager, would be maybe, I guess, the trade. Corey Seager, I think, is the best analog for Anthony Davis. Same age, injury prone, clearly still elite, but like, are you really counting on this? That's why I really like the Corey Seager, Anthony Davis parallel. Because people comparing Anthony Davis like, oh, it's like if you traded Bobby Witt for Mike Trout. That's too complimentary. I know Anthony Davis is, I guess, better right now than Mike Trout probably is right now relative to their sports. But that's like, no, Anthony Davis was never on path to be one of the greatest players of all time. The last comp that I would make here is Acuna. I think Acuna has a lot of Luka parallels. If you had traded Acuna where it's like the Braves, if the Braves had traded Acuna for Corey Seager, someone suggested this on Twitter, you know, you'd be like, the Braves would be like, well, we need a shortstop. And the Braves fans would be like, who cares? Like it's Acuna. What do you mean? Like we love him. He's 26. He was MVP. He could be the best player in baseball. Oh, he has some question marks, but like what? That's nuts. He's the reason we are Braves fans. We love Acuna so much. So that's the other one that I like. But obviously, you know, it's impossible because these are different sports, and that should make you appreciate how ridiculous this basketball trade was in a basketball context.